Good Erev Shabbos, everybody. I want to first start off wishing Mazel Tov to all those people who finished the Daf Yomi cycle of Shabbos and now already into Eruvin. Eruvin is not a simple Masechta. It's one of the hardest Masechtas in all of Shas. But I know that if you plug away, you'll get through it and you'll smooth sailing towards the next Siyam HaShas in 7 years, a little less. The From Eruvin, there's a fascinating story that changed our lives in America, and it all starts from 1831. In 1831, somebody named Michael Faraday made an electric magnet, and from that electric magnet, somebody else named Joseph Henry in 1831 took the electric magnet. It was able to actually ring a bell from a distance using just opening and closing a circuit. That idea triggered Samuel Morse to try to figure out how electricity worked. And one day he was on a ship and he graduated Yale, and he was very interested in this new idea of electricity. And he was on a ship and he was discussing these ideas. And he came up with an idea that was actually there was already a paper written on this particular idea of being able to send messages through wires. And the person who originally came up with this message, who wrote the paper, was named Joseph Gale. He was a professor in the University of New York. And Samuel Morse contacts him, and they work on this concept, and they're able to eventually send a message via wires. And what was the message? The first message ever sent was May 24th, 1844. He said, "What has God wrought?" That was the very first message sent. Why do I bring up this whole story? Because once he was able to send this message, there was a race to try to send messages all over the United States. And so Samuel Morse got contracts to try to build these wires. The goal was to try to send messages, relay messages from Baltimore to Washington. Because of few different cheap wires and major screw-ups, they ended up deciding to put the wires up in the air. And when they put these wires up in the air, they were able to link the Capitol building, the Supreme Court chambers of the Capitol building, to the Baltimore train station. And they were able to successfully send messages. And so there was a rush. And once that was successful, so all of a sudden, all over the country, these cables started to go up. What does this have to do with anything? Eruvin. What happened is because of that, we were able to make Eruvin all over the country, because these wires, which were very hard to make when you deal with all the different cities and the big cities that we have, how are we going to make Eruvin? So we had an easy way out because they made the wires for us. And as the Jews all came into New York and to all these other places, so we looked up and there, boom, we had the Erev. Great story. In this week's parsha, if you look at this week's parsha, Parshas Reah. So the parsha begins with talking about how we should not be like other nations. And then starting like the fifth aliyah, we already have ways that we shouldn't be. Hashem tells us the ways that we shouldn't be like the other nations. Moshe spells it out for us. And so things like kashrus, that we should keep kosher, meiser, shemitah, the way we treat slaves, all these different things that the Torah brings in this week's parasha shows us how we should be different. Now, in all these situations, what Hashem realizes is that when you get to certain areas of Yiddishkeit, it's hard. It's not going to be easy. And there's going to be a lot of challenges. So Hashem always gives us the the healing before the disease. That is always within it, within the disease that's coming up, within the challenge that the Jews face, there's always the healing was come first. So here in the case, so the Jews are all coming to the big cities, and we're going to have this big, a lot of people coming, and so on. So Hashem gave us already the Erev set up. And the same thing that when you look at all the different ways within this week's parsha, the challenges that we were going to have within kashrus, shmita. So Hashem promises us that you keep shmita, and what's going to happen? I promise you're going to get a bracha. You'll be able to deal with this challenge that I have. For 3 years, you'll get enough food to survive. Hashem promises that Meiser and Truma, that you'll have enough, that you'll be able to give to the Kohen and Levi. They'll support you. You'll support them. They'll support you by teaching and so on. And everybody will have enough food to survive. How about the slave? If you see in this week's parsha, the Torah tells us that when the slave goes out, so you have to give them gifts. They have to be able to survive themselves. So Hashem promises, don't worry, I'm going to take care of you, so you'll be able to take care of the slave and allow the slave to go and allow the slave to be successful in life. And we see that here now with the Chagim, and at the end, and Shabbos, we see the idea that Hashem always makes sure to take care of us before any situation occurs, any challenges that we have. But it takes us to look for it. It doesn't always come easy. We have to work on it, but it's always there. Even with the COVID, you see the fact that the whole world's coming together to try to get a cure, and they're looking to other diseases and how we cured other diseases. So it's there. We just sometimes have to wait for it. And it's not always so easy. It doesn't come 1 second. But Hashem always gives us the ability to find it and to be able to come out of any type of situation. And it's a good mussar for our lives, because sometimes we feel that we're just stuck in a situation and we feel like we can't get out. It's never going to end. So Hashem promises that it's really there. Yeah, you might have to look for it. You might be at some challenges to get to it, but the cure is always there. So on that, I wish you a great Shabbos.